Hi there, and welcome to this edition of Helping Seniors Updates. I'm Kerry Fink. I'm so glad that you're taking a moment to view this with us because we are so committed to working together with our friends at AARP. If you've been around helping seniors at all, you know one of the initiatives that we're really excited about is the work that we do together to keep seniors safe from fraud. In fact, we just finished last Friday a wonderful scam jam session at the Brennedy at Melbourne, and they were kind enough to give us a big room there, and it was standing room only. You'll see the photos on all of our social media. Look for Helping Seniors Facebook, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever you are, you're going to find Helping Seniors there. And it was such a great day. And I was just commenting. By the way, welcome, Karen. It's good to have you back with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here. And congratulations on a very successful scam jam.
Yeah, it was great, and it reinforces that each time that we've done these in Brevard County, seniors are so involved in wanting to make sure that they get kind of like what the latest is out there. And we had some great speakers. We had Corporal Breanne Lewis from the Brevard County Sheriff's Office come and speak with us. We had literally our state attorney. He's the one that prosecutes. If they can get their hands on the scammers, he's the one that brings those cases to court. His name is Will Shiner. He does a great monthly thing called the Monthly Brief. And we always publish it out on Helping Seniors because it's a great tool because he's got his, I guess, thumb on the pulse or finger on the pulse of what these bad guys are up to and trying to make sure that we all know what the latest foolishness that they're doing. But it didn't stop there. We had a wonderful group from Community Credit Union came in and shared about safe banking, and it was just, and of course, Karen Civitate, who is our lead Florida volunteer, she was there and brought us the latest on the Fraud Watch Network. So it was just a terrific morning. Greg Schwendeman, elder law attorney, brought the top 10 scams. And we graduate, if you remember, Karen, we graduate everybody at the end of this. We hand them a kind of like a little certificate and say, "You're a scam jammer. Raise your hand. Promise you're going to take everything we learned today and keep yourself safe and those around you." And so, as we get into it, I want to give a save the date because this is the third in our series. Karen has been kind enough to make time on her calendar to join us to teach us a little bit about scams. But I want to give you a date, and then I'm going to ask Karen to kind of recap those first two episodes, and we'll make sure we have links up there so you can go back and review that material as well. And then today, I'm excited for our topic that we're going to get into, which is a little bit about, I guess I would call it the advocacy, and also a little bit more about the how ARP is doing the fraud watch and all that. But the date I want to leave you with before we jump into that is going to be on Friday, August the 7th. Friday, August the 7th. We're going to be here in Melbourne area, Florida. It's actually at Zon Beachside in a little beachside town called Indian Harbour Beach. We're going to have the AARP Scam Jam AI edition. We did this last year and it was terrific. So even if you've been to a scam jam, you want to try to get in on this. Now, this Karen last year was standing room only to the point that we had people like lining the hall outside trying to listen in. That's how many people showed up, which is why we asked for the RSVPs so that we know we can save you a seat. Again, it's going to be 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on August the 7th. What I'm so excited about is ARP is going to bring in one of their lead experts. We believe it's Daryl Greer. He was with us last year. He is with the Senior Planet and Older Americans Technology Services. I hope I'm saying it right, but it's OATS. It's the folks that we work together with on our computer training programs that we do for seniors in our areas called Senior Planet Senior Tech Talks. And so that's a date you want on your calendar. If you want to RSVP for that, you would just give us a call at 321 473 7770. Let us know, and we'll make sure you're RSVP 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's going to be August the 7th at Zon Beachside, Indian Harbor Beach, Florida. And kind of with that, Karen, if you don't mind, would you just kind of like recap as you talk about, because we've done two episodes so far, so this is like the trilogy. It's almost like like going to some movie you like, but this is better than a movie because this is gonna help you stay secure in your retirement. So let's talk a little bit about each one of the sessions we did, and then we'll throw up the link so if you missed it, you can go back and check it out.
Absolutely. So, the first episode that we did together, Carrie, we talked about the value of fraud education, how it really does help you prevent and avoid scams. and also some helpful tactics for avoiding scams or detecting scams, like the pause, reflect, protect. That stop, drop, and roll. Pause, reflect, protect. And then in episode 2, we covered together kind of the issue of underreporting when it comes to fraud and how the importance of reporting fraud, even when you don't lose money, just cannot be overstated. We need people to report fraud. And we're actually going to go into a little bit more of the why behind that today. And we briefly talked a little bit about AARP Florida's policy work and how we've worked on legislation for fraud prevention, including the crypto ATM or virtual currency kiosk scam and the regulation of those kiosks around Florida, which is House Bill 505, and that's pending. So we're going to hit more on the policy today and also go into a little bit more of why reporting is just so critical, the data piece of that.
Yeah, I was just make the comment, Friday I was able to share that, that's kind of like the new thing that we want everybody to get in their thinking is pause, reflect, and protect because the scammer's motive, right, is always to catch you off guard. You're either going to miss out if you don't do this right away, or something bad is going to happen if you don't do this
Exactly.
right away. And so the whole point is to get you to not think rationally and just react, and that's why I love that pause, reflect, and protect, Karen. That's so important.
Me too. It's a great little useful tool to keep in mind.
So, on the last time we visited, we were talking about these updates, and I was particularly curious, and we tried to share a little bit Friday too about the fact that we're excited about seeing this cryptocurrency legislation come into effect to try to protect our seniors from, because that it used to be gift cards, and I guess many times it still is, but now it's like run down and drop money into some cryptocurrency kiosk. And even our state attorney was saying that's not a good idea by any stretch of the imagination. Can you talk a little bit about or update us real quickly on things that might be new since we last visited?
Sure. So, since we last spoke, the Federal Trade Commission has actually released its 2025 fraud data. And so, when we talk about kind of how big of an issue fraud is, there's some pretty significant numbers out there. $15.9 billion. That's the amount of fraud that was reported to the FTC last year alone. And again, we've said this before, but we know that those numbers are underreported. So the real number is much bigger than that. But billion dollars, that catches the eye of lawmakers and others who have the position and authority to make changes and to actually affect this, prevent this, or put in policies that will prevent this for all of us. So, just in terms of the types of scams that we see as being the really popular ones, imposter scams are still top of the list. And just to that alone, we saw over $3.5 billion to imposter scams. So, I mean, the numbers are there, but I wanted to dive a little bit deeper with you, Carrie, today about why the information around fraud reporting, that $15.9 billion, that definitely stands out to me. It stands out to others, and it says we need to do something. But how? How do we do something about this? What should we be doing about this? And, the Federal Trade Commission has some really cool interactive tools when it comes to their data collection. So you can go on there and explore different types of data. You can go by state, you can go by age group, you can go by different types of scams. It's really cool. And one of the things that I really love about this tool is it allows you to look at how fraud impacts generations differently. And so I put together some data points here, and let me just start by asking you, Carrie. I'm going to give you a couple of trivia questions here.
Okay.
So, can you guess the age group that reported the most fraud losses to the FTC last year?
Well, I hope it's not a trick question, but I would probably be sad to say I would probably say it was our seniors and maybe older seniors.
So that's a great point and great idea. It's actually age 40 to 49. That was the group that lost the most in terms of what was reported to the FTC. And what we saw, the data shows in 2025 and in years prior, it's younger people who end up losing money more often to scammers. So if you were to look at the breakdown, 38% of 20 to 29-year-olds as compared to 25% of 70 to 79-year-olds. Now I know those are just a bunch of numbers, but the idea is that older adults do lose money to fraud. And when they lose money, typically they're losing more money per scam.
Um,
But we are seeing every age group getting targeted and hit, and every age group is losing money to fraud, some age groups more frequently than others. So I think it's important for us to talk about that because, like you, my initial thought is, it's probably going to be older adults. We hear about this all the time. It's older adults who are targeted all the time. That's true, but it's not just older adults. And so we need to talk about fraud in a collective, how this is impacting all of us across ages. And it challenges those stereotypes and those biases.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because at one of the recent things, I don't think it was actually the scam jam. I think it was another meeting that we were at where we had an audience, and I think we were telling them, like, here's an opportunity for you to sign up for Scam Jam free, the free workshop. And a lady came up to me afterwards, she said, "Something you said made me feel a lot better." And I thought, "Well, if it's about a scam, I really can't imagine what that would be." And she goes, "No," she said that you shared that it wasn't just seniors who get scammed. And she goes, "That made me feel better because, I understand how dangerous this is, but I was wondering if it was just happening for seniors." And I thought, "Well, that's a unique because I had never thought about it that way, Karen."
It's a fair point, and if we just say that it's happening to older age groups, then we start using stereotypes and saying, "Oh, it's because of," and fill in the blank. The reality is that scammers are sophisticated, that they are attacking Americans on a daily basis. So it is a numbers game, and it's not an if anymore, it's really a when. And when you encounter that, are you in the right frame of mind to pause, reflect, protect? And I have to say, I think that the work that you are doing, the work that many of us are doing in fraud prevention when it comes to seniors is really taking hold because older adults are getting the message. This is a problem. It's impacting a lot of us in terms of our long-term financial security. And so they're listening to this. And, I want to pose another trivia question to you here and looking at the age breakdown of how fraud impacts different generations because we look at the different types of payment and communication methods that scammers use. Can you guess what the top one or two payment methods might be for scammers to ask for from victims who are in that 80 plus age group bracket?
I would probably default back to say, well, maybe it's the gift cards, or maybe these days it's drop money into cryptocurrency. But I have talked to enough bankers who talk to me about they're getting wiped out in their bank accounts because somehow how the bad guys got a hold of their banking information. So those are just a couple of guesses. What is the answer?
Great, great job. So one of the ones you mentioned, gift cards, is number two. The top method of payment from those 80 plus is actually credit cards, gift cards, check, and cash. Now, I'm going to tell you that the top two methods of payment for the age group of 20 to 29 are none of those. You want to take a guess as to what that might be?
Oh, wow. Uh, I don't even know where to begin with that one.
It's
Uh,
okay. I feel like I'm setting you up for a trick question here, but it's payment apps and debit cards. So, the way that we pay for things ordinarily and the way that we feel comfortable paying changes with generations. And another thing that changes, like I said, the method of contact for age group of 20 to 29, the top method of scammers contacting you is social media. For 80 plus, it's over the phone. And the reason that this matters, and I'm taking the time to go through these points with you, is because a one size fits all approach just doesn't work. Just looking at one method of contact or one method of payment is not going to reduce fraud across the board. It's going to have piecemeal impact. Same thing with our fraud education. It has to be catered to really a widespread but also unique generational differences. So, exciting stuff.
Yeah, no, it's really good to work through that. Now, I was gonna say, one of the things that we rely on a lot when we do Scam Jam and trying to get information generally to our seniors about the work of the AARP Fraud Watch Network, because you guys are kind of like the leaders trying to make sure that you have everything going on about this. Wanted to ask you a little bit about some of the research and the things that you're doing that you see and how that works. And it's great that you are protecting us and trying to get us the information so we know how we can kind of steer clear.
Absolutely. So AARP, we are an advocacy organization. We advocate for the 50 plus. We are taking information from all sources. So we're looking at the Fraud Watch Network helpline when we get calls coming in. What are the trends that we're seeing there? What can we do to impact fraud and to prevent fraud or address the enforcement aspect of fraud? And we also conduct studies. So we sent out a survey, and a recent national survey showed that Americans want to see certain fraud protections and policies in place. 9 out of 10 adults 50 plus support allocating federal funding to help law enforcement at the local level to investigate and enforce criminal laws when it comes to fraud. This has bipartisan support. And more than 8 out of 10 adults 50 plus support legislation that would allow fraud victims to subtract the amount of funds that they have lost to fraud from their taxable income. So, because that is another huge problem. They're getting taxed for income or assets they no longer have that they've lost to fraud. And these studies are really underscoring this important message that Americans want lawmakers to take fraud seriously, to invest in prevention and enforcement, and to stand with victims.
As you were talking about that, one of the things that really occurred to me was that's isn't that the challenge is like I remember when you and I were doing the first episode of this, you were explaining how you guys were advocating about the whole cryptocurrency because you wanted to make sure that there were some protections in place. So when seniors just show up at the kiosk and they're going to try to, you know, follow up what this scammer has told them to do, that there's at least some protection that will help them like limit how much they can do in a day and things like that. And I was thinking like that's so important because that's the kind of work that somebody who really has the best interests of seniors and can advocate for us on that kind of a national level. That is so important. How do you guys take advantage of the data that you collect and then make sure that that's getting relayed to the people who are making these decisions about laws and what we can do that would help our seniors?
So it's important to know that AARP's advocacy, it takes place at all levels. It takes place nationally, state level, local advocacy, and on fraud in particular, we're hitting all of those fronts. Nationally, we have focused on a number of different bills, and I'll just name a couple of them right off the top. The GUARD Act is one of them, which would direct funding to local law enforcement. It would train staff. It would help give tools to local law enforcement to fight fraud. This is one that we've helped and we've advocated for. This one's actually sponsored by Senator Moody from Florida, and it's definitely a good piece. It's a good bill that is in line with what our advocacy or our research is telling us that consumers want, right? Tax relief for victims of scams, crimes, and disasters. That's another bill that really resonates with people because it is helping victims not get taxed or hurt a second time after they've been defrauded. We've seen fraud victims going into bankruptcy because the IRS is taxing them for all kinds of money that a scammer's already taken from them. So this is another bill that really needs the bipartisan support, and I think has the bipartisan support to move forward. Another one is the Foreign Robocall Elimination Act, which would have established a interagency task force to combat robocalls, especially those coming outside of the U.S. And at the end of the day, fraud is a crime. The people who it targets deserve a government and an organization that treats it that way. So we're going to keep pushing until the government and everyone does. And you can explore these different solutions and how AARP is fighting for it at aarp.org/advocacy.
That is so good to know. Now, as you know, Helping Seniors, we're 100% local to Brevard County. If you may be watching this, you're not in our area. We always tell people it's the Space Coast. It's where they launch rockets from. And they actually told me, Karen, it's the world's largest cruise port now too, because so many people take cruises in and out of Port Canaveral. So there we are on the middle, kind of the middle Atlantic portion of the state of Florida. So it's a great place for us to be. But I guess my question to you is, as a local organization, are there things that we can do or motivate the people who help us to do the work that we do to be involved? What can we do? What's a call to action for us where we can help what the good work that ARP is doing to make sure our state folks and our local folks are doing everything they can as well?
Absolutely. So AARP really provides a number of different ways that consumers across the state can engage with our advocacy. I mean, you can go to our advocacy page. I'd recommend that you start with our Florida advocacy page. It's aarp.org/FL advocacy. And that will show you the different state bills and priorities that we're working on, and it will have calls to action. Let your legislator know, let your congressman know, let whomever know to support certain legislation. I mean, we talked about the cryptocurrency bill, with the crypto ATM bill, I should say, and how we've worked on that front. I mean, we've got the call to action on the page right now if you wanted to go on there and say, hey, we want the governor to sign this legislation because it's already passed. It's now just pending governor's signature. But there are a number of ways that you can engage. We also have local advocacy initiatives that we work on. Have in the cryptocurrency space and cryptocurrency ATM fraud, we actually have gone to local governments and provided presentations and sample ordinance language so that even at the local level, local governments can enact policies that will help protect their residents on the local level. So I would say, staying in the loop with AARP communications piece is critical to this, to just know what we're advocating for and to be able to take that next step of contacting whomever, not just on fraud, but fraud for purposes of today's discussion. You know, the crypto ATM the crypto ATM issue was a major one. There were much more bills that we advocated for on fraud this year and in years past. And you can learn more about those too by going and taking a look at our AARP Florida legislative voting records. I'd encourage you to take a look because there's so many different issues that we advocate on from year to year.
I gotta applaud at what you guys are doing because it is so good to know that seniors have somebody who's in their corner fighting for them. Because all too often, and especially locally, there's a lot of need in a lot of different places. But I think it's so important that we take time. Even the federal government says, we got to protect kids under 18. They call them a vulnerable section of the population, but they do that with seniors too. And we need to make sure that we're looking at seniors and trying to do everything we can protect because, as you know, Karen, and I feel like I'm almost preaching to the choir, when something bad like a scam happens to a senior and it ends up wiping out really what they had planned to be able to survive on for the rest of their life. They're not able to necessarily work, and so it's particularly devastating. And I love how everything that you're doing is directly focused in on ensuring that if there's a way to slow this down or make it harder for the scammers to get a hold of folks, this is so important. And again, I want to thank you for taking the time to just share. I wanted to ask you, do you have a final closing thought? Like this is great, three great pieces of this conversation about all things that we're talking about for seniors and scams and what ARP is doing to combat it.
Well, I would say there's so many issues that we didn't get a chance to cover in the time that we have. So I would just encourage folks to take a look at their own time, take a look at the AARP website, um, and recognize that the policy work that we do we advocate for the 50 plus, we advocate for older adults, but so much of the policies that we work on benefit the entire community. So, and all of these fraud pieces that we're talking about, it's not just going to benefit older adults, it's going to protect everyone. So, it's something that really all of us can get behind, regardless of how old we are or thinking future term for when we're going to be.
Yeah. No, I love it because to that point, I was gonna say we get an awful lot of calls from seniors who are literally on their own trying to match it out or figure it out. But then, we get so many calls from family members with seniors and they're trying to navigate that. And so really, if something happens to one of our seniors, it really does trickle down and it affects the whole family. So if we can kind of make sure that they're in good shape, we really are in good shape. So thank you, Karen, again for taking your time to share with us on this today. I know I'm hoping you'll come back and we're going to continue the conversation. But I want to be sure to kind of close out and remind everybody to get that August 7th date onto your calendar. That is going to be our ARP Scam Jam AI edition. And literally, we're so excited that AARP is literally flying in like they're like one of the most foremost experts on all this because it was so good when he shared that last year. You don't want to miss it. It's 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. August the 7th. It's going to be taking place at Zon Beachside, which is in Indian Harbour Beach, Florida. It's just over the bridge from Melbourne, Florida. We want to see you there. Call us on RSVP for that 321-473-7770. And thank you, Karen, for joining us again today. Look forward to visiting some more as your time allows. And I want to thank you, viewer, for joining us for this edition of Helping Seniors Update. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.